Hey, everybody, welcome again. Glad to have you with us and apologize for the earlier snafu. That was my fault. And yeah, glad we could get it fixed and have you join us at the bottom of the hour. And very glad to have Warwick join us live from Brisbane, Australia, where it is much earlier, Friday morning for him. And as part of the team, I am the least technical, but I am extremely excited about this because Microsoft Fabric seems like a very useful, powerful tool, and I'm looking forward to hearing what Warwick has to share. So with that, I will turn it to him.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everybody. Welcome along. So, today's session, we're talking about navigating the cloud, a glimpse into Microsoft Fabric administration. Before we get started, a little bit about Sickle Solutions Group. Okay, our founder, Randy, is on the call, but we've been around quite some time. We offer quite a number of services. If you do need any help, make sure that you reach out. We're always here to answer your questions. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Warwick Rudd. I'm a consultant and trainer based out of Brisbane, Australia, like Jason said. I'm a data platform MVP and have been lucky enough to be part of that program since 2014. So what are we here to talk about? Okay, now this is the abstract for today's session. I'm not going to go through it. Hopefully you have had a chance to see this abstract as part of the coming along to this session, but it's going to take you on a bit of a journey to get you introduced to what Fabric administration is, what you kind of need to know to have this come into your organization so that you can make this successful in your role in being able to look after Fabric in your environment. So what is Fabric? We're going to start out now. This is not my definition. I just want to say that right from the start. So I'm just going to read this definition for you because this is Microsoft's definition of what is Fabric. It's an all-in-one analytic solution for enterprises that covers everything from data movement to data science, real-time analytics, and business intelligence. Now, it does offer you a full comprehensive suite where you're able to take things from different data sources, pull them all together, where prior to Fabric, that was a lot more difficult for us to do. Okay, you needed to cobble different technologies together to be able to achieve what Fabric does for us. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll see some bullet points, and hopefully none of those look new or outstanding, or you're going, hey, I don't know what these are, okay? Data warehousing. It's been around a long time. Nothing new there. It's just incorporated. Data engineering. Well, this is a way how you're managing that data. It makes it easy pulling it all together. Integration. Well, we've been doing that for a long time as well. With, started off with BDS packages or SSIS packages. We then moved to ADF, etc. Right? Data science, a little bit newer. Real-time analytics. That's been more of a tough ask for quite some time, okay? But it's something that people have been working on for a long, long time. And business intelligence, well, we go all the way back to, starting with reporting services that gave us the ability to bubble up that data that we needed so management could make those decisions. We then come full circle all the way through to Power BI, which is part of Fabric, okay? So a lot of these concepts are not new. It's just pulling them all together. So what is the Fabric architecture? Well, we're composed of a number of different components. Now, we spoke about on the previous slide, different things that we're going to be using. Data integration. Well, that's where we're using Data Factory. It's been in Azure for quite some time. It was that move from using SSIS to Data Factory in a cloud environment. Data engineering. Well, Synapse. We've had that for a little while. It's just been incorporated. Same with our data warehousing and data science. Look at that, even our real-time analytics. But Power BI, Most of you, or some of you, hopefully, have been using it for quite some time, and moving that into Fabric is no change for you. The look and feel is exactly the same. The new kid on the block is the observability side of things, which is Data Activator, where we're able to incorporate that into our environment to make life easier for us to get notifications, etc., when something's changed, when we need to know about something, do we need to make some decisions? All of that is sitting on top of OneLake. Now, OneLake allows us to combine different data types, different formats, all into a central location that we're able to easily access. It means that we no longer need to be able to move data, which was one of the biggest problems that we had when we were using integration services, for example. We were having to pick up data, move it across to another environment. We're able to access that all inside of one central location, being OneLake, and we're able to incorporate the security on that to make our lives easier, making our environment secure, to pull it all together. So who's actually going to be using this? Well, when we break it down into the various types, we can see we've got our analysis and action. So these are the types of components that we're going to be using. From our real-time analytics, business intelligence, and observability, they're the things that we're going to be using so that we can be told when something's happening, we can then make those decisions. Our move and transform. Nothing new here, being data integration, engineering, and warehousing. It's technologies that we've been using for quite some time. We've just made it easier. And then we've got our data science to allow for those insights and patterns. Now, the people or types of roles that might use this is where it may change depending on your environment, okay? Now, data engineers, you're probably going to look at these components of Fabric. Data scientists, definitely, we're going to be using Synapse, and you may be wanting to dive more into the Azure ML, the large learning models that are available. Might even pull in some of the newer data science, or I shouldn't say data science, some of the newer AI features to interrogate and investigate those the data that you're wanting to forecast on. Data analysts, once again, it's not changing. And our decision makers, Power BI and Microsoft 365. While all of those are dealing with the data, what we do need to be aware of is down the bottom there, we've got our data stewards. And this is where Fabric integrates with Purview. Okay, so we're able to mark our data, right? Classify it. We can put tags on it. We can even track where it's coming from, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But out of the box, we get integration between Fabric, all of these types of things that we're needing to do, as well as with that governance side of things. So from a Fabric's concept, and this is where, as an administrator, we need to start and understand these things so that we've got a good grounding to be able to do our job. Now, the first thing that we need to know about is a tenant. Now, that's our Azure tenancy that we need to enable Fabric so that we can use it in our environment. To do that, we do have to be a member of one of these roles that we can see. So we've got our Fabric admin, or if you are coming from that Power BI background, it's formerly known as the Power BI admin. The other ones, and this is where it's starting to pull together from those different components in the Azure stack, we've got Power Platform admin. Okay, Power Platform on its own is another feature. Okay, but with that one, or our Microsoft 365 admins. The other one is if you're a global admin of the Azure tenant. Okay, with those, we're then able to enable Fabric inside of our tenant and manage the different settings and configurations, which we will have a look at, for our end users to be able to use that. Once we've got our tenant in place, capacity. Now, this is a big thing that we need to be aware of, right? We don't create it. We'll have a look how we can create it and what are our different capacity units that we can use. But this is where we get to design and use. We've got a single capacity. We could use that across multiple workloads, multiple workspaces, or depending on what we're wanting to do, we're able to create multiple capacities. And those capacities range from capacity 2, so that's 2 capacity units, all the way up to 2048 capacity units. That's what we see down there on the bottom. What we need to be aware of, if you happen to be doing or wanting to get certified as a data engineer, and you could go and sit the DP 700 exam, you do need to know about the various capacity units and understand what capacity units give you various feature sets, okay? Because the 64 capacity units is that tipping point where you get full access to every capacity unit. But you might not need, I shouldn't say every capacity unit, every feature in Fabric. But you might not need to use every feature, so you can actually start with the lower capacity unit. And this is where it comes down at a cost, okay? So we do need to be wary of that, and we'll have a look at what that kind of looks like a little bit later on in the demo. But what we are able to do to assist from that cost is we're able to scale up, scale down, and we can even pause our capacity so that we're not running out costs when we don't need to use it. Now, the difference from this from when we had Synapse was a capacity. So with our dedicated SQL pools, was a capacity per workload. And we weren't able to share that. This is where Fabric really comes into its own, where we've got that capacity going across the bottom that we can have across our shared workloads that may be in different workspaces, different people using them at different times. And that's one of the benefits from it. We do need to understand about domains, okay? Or before we skip to domains, if we do want to know about what's coming up, just a bit of a blog post for you to be able to go to so that you can keep track of all of the changes which are coming in Fabric. Now, from a domains point of view, domains are just, they're a logical grouping, okay? Making it easy for us to be able to work out how do we want to group things together? How do we want different processing? We can see up in the top right-hand corner, you may have heard of a thing called data mesh. And this is where we're able to take data from lots of different disparate locations, pull them all together, process those, but put them into various domains. Now we can see up there, we've got sales, marketing, HR. They are logical, okay? But it means that in our HR domain, we're creating a workspace which has our appropriate items, and we'll talk about what those items are, but only those people in HR are able to see those. Same as with sales. Only the salespeople can see what they need to have access to. Now, the beauty of it is, with our domains, you can then create subdomains. Now, a subdomain, once again, it's just a logical grouping, but that may be if, for example, you do have sales. It may be a different region inside of sales because you might be interested in knowing about, well, what are our sales in the US? What are our sales in the EU? What are our sales down here in Australia? It gives us the ability to easily manage those. Once we've got our domains created, workspaces, this is where all of the work is undertaken. And we need to, as an administrator, we really need to know about workspaces because not only are we looking at who has access, we've got what type of access people have, what type of items can they create, and that's kind of dictated based on the license that end user has, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But we're able to set that granular security down to the item level. Our task flows, what are we picking up the data from? Where are we going to? Who has access to that? The big benefit here, Git integration. And this has evolved over the time since we got Fabric, okay? And we'll have a look in the demo as to what that Git integration looks like. Now, when I'm normally doing this session at like Data Saturdays, SQL Saturdays, etc., that one bullet point there on Git integration, I like to call out that in itself is an entire session. So it gives you a bit of an idea on the breadth and what you need to know about from a Git integration. I've got it just in a single bullet point, right? But it is far, far deeper that we need to understand. Then lastly, we've got the items. Well, what are they? They're what we can create, and they're the artifacts that we're able to create inside of that workspace. And we can see here, we've got what they look like inside of our workspace. Well, what are they? We can create apps. We can create lake houses. We can create warehouses, reports, semantic models, etc. Once we've created those, you're then able to set who has access to use those, right? And so your semantic models really come into their own on being able to share those permissions on who has access to reuse those semantic models for different people creating different reports. Now we get to the meat of what we're here to talk about, okay? The admin side of things. Now, I created this session mainly thinking about it because my background is a traditional infrastructure DBA from many, many years ago, as you might tell from the color of my beard. But what were our responsibilities as an admin? Okay, well, we're responsible for security, performance, uptime, reliability. Well, Fabric is no different. As an administrator, we still need to be able to make sure, is it performing? Well, that comes down to what type of capacities we're using. Who has access? Are they using it appropriately? Is it trusted? So from our reports, we'll have a look from a governance side of things. How do people know that they can use this and trust it? So from that administration side of things, we need to be able to understand how we go about managing this environment. So from an admin role, there's a couple of different roles that you may be granted to. And we mentioned these a couple of slides back around what role you need to be able to, one, enable Fabric in your organization. So our global platform and our Fabric administrators, we spoke about those three, and they give you the ability to enable or disable Fabric features, report on usage, review and manage any auditing, which is really important on being able to identify when there is a problem, how we go about troubleshooting that. The fourth one there, the capacity admin. And this is the next level down from those three. It's still an elevated privilege, but it doesn't give us all of the same high-level permissions that we get from our global admin, platform admin, or Fabric administrator. A capacity admin gives us the ability inside of a workspace, we're able to provision capacities. We can either manage the permissions on those provision capacities, and we're able to manage the workload that is being undertaken on those. So this is where I mentioned right at the start, it's potentially going to change based on your organization. If you're in a small organization, you might be wearing all of those caps. We've got various settings, and in the upcoming demo, we're not going to go through all of those, but I will quickly show you how many settings we have got available to us. But our security and access control, one of the most important things, just like with our databases, we're in the cloud, so we need to be able to lock that down on who has access to it. Now, one of the main roles that we will use, because it is cloud-based, is using your Entra ID. We're then able to use role-based access control on limiting what you have access to. And we're able to assist us in how we go about doing that. And we'll touch on that in a couple of slides' time. Data governance. Out of the box, Fabric integrates or has some built-in data governance features, but it also takes that even further with integrating with Purview. So we're able to track those data, put tags on, be able to identify that sensitive data that we may not want certain people to be able to see. Then we've got our customization and configuration. This is where in the in the settings, we're able to add, do we have company colors that we like to use? Do we have company logos that we want to put in place so that when something is created, it's automatically branded? That customization configuration also is down to who can actually do what, who can see what, right? That falls under the security as well, but we're able to granularly set those. And lastly, our monitoring and optimization. And this is really important on how we're able to identify what's being used, how it's being used, is it appropriate, is it costing us too much money? So with that, let's have a look at how we go about doing that. The tools that we've got available to us, you're probably going to want to start in the admin portal. And the reason for that is because, as I've mentioned, there are so many different settings available to you that working in the admin portal is probably your go-to start place so that you can become familiar. What can you do? What do you need to do? Now, not all of the configurations and settings are undertaken in the admin portal, but from the admin portal, we're able to jump to those. And we'll have a look at that and what we need to do in the upcoming demo. We've got a list of the different options that we will see. I'm not going to go through them, but you can see that's just the high level as to what we can do. Now, as an admin, let's not talk about it from a Fabric point of view, but if you're looking after a SQL Server environment, you might like to automate things. Well, to do that, we've got PowerShell commandlets, and this makes it nice and easy for us to redo jobs. So our security side of things, okay, so we're adding new users. We need to apply role-based access control on who gets access to what. Well, we've got PowerShell commandlets available to us to be able to make our lives easier and automate those jobs. So therefore, when we're requested to do it, it's a simple thing. We're not having to log into a portal, try and find where is that. It might be that, you know, we need to configure data sources and gateways because we're having a new report created. Well, can we actually access that? As well as that, we've got the ability to monitor what is going on in the environment. Now, we will have a look at the admin dashboard, but we're able to take that further using our PowerShell commandlets. Now, you can even take that even further with the APIs and the SDKs. This is where you may have in your environment applications that you're using. So let's say it might be, you might have an intranet, and on that intranet, you could have various links to go off and do certain things. Well, this is where you can embed those straight into access and tasks from Fabric into that intranet to take it to that next level. If you do, you're a lot smarter than me, but hey, I'm okay with that. But these are the things that are available to assist you in managing and maintaining the Fabric environment, as well as making your life easier in automating and administering this environment. Our settings. I've taken some screenshots, and these are straight out of the admin portal that we will see once we've logged in. So I'm not going to go through them. It's just here so that you're able to see them, and then we'll discuss them in the demo, right? But our preferences. This is where we're able to set up those configurations, like, do we have any colors that we want? Do we have any of the logos, etc.? From our resources and extensions, well, what are we wanting people to use? As we can see here, we've got Power BI settings. We've got our managing our connections and gateways, or even managing embedded code. Our governance and insights, this is where we're jumping out to Purview and going and setting up those tags, identifying that data, scanning the data, and we'll touch on those later on in today's session. User management. So We mentioned depending on what type of features you can use, what items you can access, this comes down to the type of license that you're using. And as we can see here, it is all based on your Microsoft 365 account. Okay, so you must have that 365 account, which then gives you an Entra ID, which allows us to lock things down and give you access. Now, we can start off with a free license. This gives us limited access, but it allows us to start and play. All right, so we can access the web app. We'll have a look. What does that look like? We can access or create a Fabric workspace as long as you as the administrator have enabled people to create those. So you can lock it down that no, not everybody can. We can create non-Power BI items. Now that's important, okay? Because this is where it comes down to those licensing levels, but creating non-Power BI items in the workspace. You can share non-Power BI items in the workspace. We can view shared Power BI items as long as the capacity that the workspace is associated with is a 64 CU or higher. Now, we'll have a look at what that costs. Then we've got our capacity licenses, which is where we're able to purchase the capacity and that capacity is assigned across the board. We've got the old Power BI licenses, right? So you've got your Pro and you've got premium licenses, and they then dictate what you can do. Licensing is a whole thing on its own. So with that, let's dive in and have a look at the app. Jason, before we go in, we got any questions on what we've covered so far? I don't see any, which is okay. If you do have any questions, like Jason's put in the chat, put them in. Happy to take those as we go along. Okay, so I pre-logged in because you didn't need to see us doing your login, but you know, when you go to app.fabric.microsoft.com, you'll be asked to log in with your Microsoft 365 account. The first thing you'll be greeted with. Now, if you have played with this, this has changed, okay? We used to have personas down here in the bottom left-hand corner. We now just have the single fabric. This used to be where we could choose what type of persona we were in, and you could choose whether it was data engineering, Power BI, data science, etc. All right, and that's now gone away. It's all just available to us inside of the Fabric app. Now, from an administration point of view, what do we want to know about here? Well, we've got this little cog up here to the right. This is where we're able to see those settings. Now, leading into the demo, I had a couple of screenshots, which was just basically breaking down these settings, right? So our preferences, our resources and extensions, and our governance and insights. This is where it makes it nice and easy for us to be able to go to and set those. If we have a quick look just at our general settings. Across the board, very simple as to what we're wanting to do. We've got our notifications, we've got our item settings, etc. However, what we are able to do, and they align with these four bullet points that we've got, but we can also choose and set settings at workspace levels, okay? Before we get to that, how we get to the admin portal, so we come down here, we get our admin portal, and it gives us the list of all of these settings, okay? And so from the slide you will have seen, I had some of these already in. Now, our tenant settings, when I mentioned this is the first thing that we need to be aware of, and it needs to be enabled for us to be able to use Fabric, okay? Now, I'm not expecting you to be able to read all of these, okay? So you can see some of these. I'm gonna quickly scroll just to give you an idea as to how many settings you've got available to you. Okay, that was pretty quick, but you can see just how many settings are available. Now, we're not going to be going through all of those. You will want to spend some time. The big one that I want to call out, so users can create Fabric items. If we expand this, what you need to be aware of inside of the admin, you may just want to be using Power BI, and that's fine, okay? Power BI on its own is a feature set that you can use. It is also part of Fabric. However, it's an opt-in or opt-out. So by enabling this means that I just want to use Power BI. I don't want to use any of the other Fabric features or components, okay? So you need to be aware of that on what you're needing to do in your organization. Once we've got our tenant settings enabled and we're in here, we mentioned about capacity. Well, when we come to the capacity settings, this is just giving us information about what capacities we've got already configured. Okay, so we're able to buy our licensing, which for any of these, if I hit the purchase, this will take us off. I've already logged in, but it'll take us into our 365 admin, and we're then able to go and buy the appropriate licensing that we need. Okay, so we can't do it here inside of Fabric, but it will take us to where we need to. Trial, this is a big thing. You'll see I'm running under a trial, okay? What that trial is, you can sign up and get 60 odd days of using this without having to pay. And this makes it nice and easy for me without costing me money to be able to look in and work with Fabric and do these presentations. From a Fabric capacity point of view, once again, we go purchase, and that brings us into a normal resource inside of our Azure tenancy. This looks all familiar. We're just creating a resource. We choose what our resource group is. Now, what I really wanted to show you is our capacities. Now, as I said, we start at CU2, approximately $393. This is in Aussie dollars. Down to, if you go to an F2048, right, that's estimating 400 grand a month for an F2048. Now, that's if we were using it all of the time, but that's really expensive. F64 being your tipping point, as I mentioned, even that, 12.5 grand a month if you were using that capacity across the board for running 100% of the time a month. So this can rack up really, really, really quickly. And you as an administrator are going to want to know about what capacity units you are using. And this is why it makes it simple for you to be able to scale up, scale down, and even pause that capacity. So it's only being used when you need it to be used so that you're not racking up that kind of cost. So once we've got our capacity in play, we spoke about we need to have domains. Now, domains, as we mentioned, they are just logical groupings and very simple to set up. We come in, we go domains, go start from scratch, we give it a domain name. Okay, and then we're able to invite or set who are the admins for those domains. Okay, nice and simple. Once we're done there, we've then got our workspaces. Now, our workspaces, this just shows us what workspaces we've got, what access we've got to those, etc. It doesn't give us a lot of information here. But to access our workspaces, we've got over on the left-hand side here in our menu bar, we've got our workspaces that we're able to see what our workspaces are. If we come to that workspace, we can then see what items. Once we're in the workspace, we've got more settings that we can use. So we've got our manage access. Who do we want to have? So I'm an admin, but I can then go and add additional people who have access to this workspace. We've then got various workspace settings. And this is where we really want to dive into it, right? So we're not going to worry about licensing information, but our Azure connections. Where are we connecting? What are we needing to do? And this is where we're going and setting up and connecting to our various ADLS2 storage locations. If we've got log analytics, well, how are we connected? And so that's from that logging point of view. So we know what is going on in our environment, and it's going off to our log analytics. And that's where you'll need to know about not just SQL, right? But you'll want to have KQL skills to be able to run your statements against your log analytics workspace to see what's going on in the environment, okay? What is our system storage? Our Git integration. Now, I mentioned that this has evolved. Initially, we only had GitHub. We've now got 2 connectors that we can choose from. Once again, to enable this, that's an admin setting, and it does take a little bit of time to enable it and say, right, we've now got this second provider that we've got available to us. From our workspace identity, this is where we would probably want to go and create that identity to lock things down from that security point of view, which we'll have a look at shortly. From our monitoring point of view, we can go and create an event house to be able to see what's going on in the environment, to assist with understanding that utilization, the performance, who's doing what, so that we are able to dive in and have a look. Our various Power BI configurations, even from what our Spark settings. Now, Spark settings, this is where we're able to configure what type of workflows we're using, okay? Because you're probably going to be using Spark to process that data and get that high volume throughput through. If you are looking at Spark point of view, make sure you look at koalas over pandas, okay? Because pandas don't scale. And then we've got our data factory configurations that we can do with our Apache Airflow runtime settings. Creating items, very simple. We just get to choose what we've got. And as you can see, a large number of items that people can go and create that you've given the permissions to be able to go and access. Looking at that, we can see here, I've got a lake house that I've created. This is for another session that I do. We've got our semantic model, and we've got a couple of notebooks that we're able to use to go and run things against that data which I've got stored in my lake house. From a monitoring point of view, we'll see more about it later, but what we want to have a look at is if we have a look at our workspaces, you can see I've got a number of workspaces here, and if I wanted to create a new one, all well and good. But we've got this one called admin monitoring. Now, admin monitoring is a pre-canned monitoring workspace that you need to enable. Once you enable, it will take a little bit of time to go and set up and refresh and pull data about your environment. You can only have one. You only have read access to this. It comes default with features and usage adoption, both your report, your semantic model, and your Purview hub for your report and the semantic model. Knowing about the semantic model is very important. So you can share who has access to the admin monitoring. By default, you need to be an administrator to be able to access this, but you're able to manage the access up here and say, who do I want to add or share this with? And the reason why you might want to do that is for the semantic model, you want to create your own dashboards and reports on top of that semantic model, specific to what you want to know about in your environment. And the reason why you might want to do that, as I said, this is read only. And if we have a look at that, this report, it loads up and goes, here's our dashboard that shows us what's going on. What are the activities? How's it being used? Who's using what? And you're able to then dive in to see what's going on in that environment, okay? We've got our analysis that allows us to drop down further, as well as what type of inventory are we being used, okay? We can't change this, but this is a great starting place to be able to access it, okay? And that's why I was saying that, If you've got the ability, if you're better at Power BI than me, then you can create those dashboards and reports on top of this semantic model to get what you want. Now, we spoke about Purview, and this is just a quick jump into it to show you. I haven't set anything up. I haven't set up any sensitivity labels, endorsements, and we haven't scanned any of our workloads, okay? But this gives you that high level as to what is going on in that. If we were to come back to our settings, we can then jump to our Purview Hub, which gives us the ability. This is where we want to jump in and we're able to undertake what we want to do in configuring that data governance, right? So we want to scan our pipelines, our semantic models, or not just the semantic models, but any of that data for sensitive data to be able to go, right, I need to put these sensitivity labels on so that we're able to then track and assign appropriately. Our endorsements, this is where it comes down to those reports on being able to endorse a report. And what that means is you've got two, you've got endorsements and you've got certifications. And that means that the report, for example, has been reviewed and certified by an appropriate person in your organization to say this is valid, the data is correct, that you can use this. And it makes it easy for your end users to identify these reports. I can use this and I don't need to worry about it. And it'll have a little badge. But this is where you go and do that, as well as doing your scanning to assist with setting up those sensitivity labels. So in a nutshell, that is our access inside of Fabric. So let's jump back out to this presentation. Before we kick on, any questions on what we went through in the demo, Jason? Doesn't look like it.
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay. Security. Now, this is a big thing, and we could have an entire session just on security, okay? But what it basically boils down to, it's like an onion. We need to peel it away from the outside until we get down to the actual data. But the security is based on the Power BI security, okay? So our role as an admin is to make sure that users, groups have appropriate access and that they're able to interact appropriately with those items, and whether those items are being shared or are being distributed to various people. You can even do this so people outside of your organization can have access to the end data. But we start off, as I said, you must have an Entra ID. There is no way of getting around that, and you can't actually connect direct to Fabric, okay? It's the way that it comes in, it's using the private endpoints behind the scenes to be able to determine where you can get into and what access you have. Okay, so our network control and security on that outer layer, this is where we have the Entra conditional access, and the private links on when you're signing up, what do you get access to? So that's our first layer of it. We then come down to our workspaces and artifacts control. And when we were in the demo, we saw when we were in a workspace, we can go and manage that and set up the permissions, who has access, what roles do you have inside of that workspace, right? So are you a contributor? Can you go and create things, or are you only a consumer that you can read things? And this is where, if you're a member and a contributor, you can use all of the items in the workspace, or if you're only a viewer, you can only see the items in that workspace. We then come down to the data security and access control, and that's where, from a Power BI point of view, it's using the row level security at that data level, okay? Now, what we do want to call out is from the accessing the data and being able to really secure it, we've spoken about conditional access. Okay, so that's with your Entra ID. The resiliency on keeping this up and running. Well, this comes down to the availability zones. Okay, so it's spread across multiple availability zones inside of your region that you've deployed. Now, the thing to remember with Fabric, okay, is when you go to enable it, wherever your Power BI tenant was created, now in your Azure tenancy, you would have gone, right, I need to configure or enable your Power BI tenant. Where that Power BI tenant is created, what region, that is where your Fabric tenancy is created. Okay, now depending on what region you're in may dictate what features you can have access to. Now, the big one, if you want to have a look at, is Fabric SQL database, for example. It's not supported in every region. If your tenancy is not in a region that supports that, that can be problematic at this point in time. If you are having access, having issues, and you need Microsoft to assist you and gain access, they don't just have direct access, but it's undertaken via lockbox, and you need to be able, there's steps that you go through to be able to provide them access to that. We've got service tags that we mentioned, and this is where we're able to allow other Azure services and Fabric services to work together. Specifically, you might be wanting to or needing to connect to Azure SQL Managed Instance. And so with those service tags, we're able to configure that to allow that access. And then we've got our OneLake security on, because that's what everything is sitting on being able to access the underlying data that's maintained there. Governance. Now, we started to touch on this in the demo around using Purview. But what it allows us to do is, from a data lineage point of view, we're able to track where's the data coming from, how's it going through the entire process flow, and where's it getting to, who has access to that, what's being touched. With our information protection labels, this is where we're able to place those on so that we're able to restrict who has access to what. However, to do that, that is an additional cost, right? So these things that we've got highlighted here, they're part of Purview, okay? So it's a separate licensing cost to your costs for Fabric, i.e., which is your capacity licensing, as well as your capacity, as well as your user licenses, depending on what you're doing. Purview, yes, we're able to jump out to the Purview hub, but it's an additional license for you to be able to utilize these things to assist from your protection labels, your data loss prevention, and getting that governance from end to end in your environment. Now, we do have the scanner, which we'll touch on very shortly, which is associated with your governance side of things to be able to scan your different items to find that sensitivity information that you want to put your labels on. Just to recap on our monitoring side of things, we had the admin portal, and this is just a screenshot straight from that admin portal on what we're able to see out of the box. As I mentioned, we need to enable it. Once we do enable it, it does take about 10 minutes for it to spin up, start and populate the data. And then it's around, refreshed automatically once a day, okay? There are some considerations around that in that, yes, we mentioned that it's read-only. We spoke about being able to use the underlying semantic model to create your own to give you more information. Going along with this out-of-the-box admin monitoring, we do have the ability to, this is fairly new, we've got the Fabric Capacity Metrics app. Now, this does need to be installed, and what this allows us to do is gain access to this to give us information about the utilization of our capacity that we've got in place. Therefore, we can see, well, what timings are we needing this capacity? Have we got it over provisioned? Is it costing us far too much money? Okay, so this is a fantastic app that, as an administrator, you need to be able to install this so that you've got access to assist you in managing and maintaining the environment and making sure that you're not blowing your budget. So what have we covered off during this session, right? Well, we've introduced you to, well, what is Fabric? It's a all-encompassing software as a platform software that combines everything into a single place, making our jobs easier to go from start to finish. And as an administrator, we need to be able to know what's going on in that environment to be able to manage it appropriately. We had a look at the different components, that being real-time analytics, business intelligence, observability, data integration, engineering, data warehousing, data science, and using those technologies that have been around for quite some time, being Synapse, Power BI, Azure Data Factory, okay? The concepts, what did we go through? Well, we started off at that tenant level on how we need to enable that, who can do that, what are the features that we've got. We need our capacities. Where are we getting those capacities? What are the sizes? What are the costs? Domains, being able to logically break things down and group things together on those workspaces, which then hold all of those items that we're able to grant access to. Then as a administration, what do we need to do? Well, we need to be able to be a member of one of the 4 roles that we spoke about. We've got access via the portal or via the tools, being the APIs, PowerShell, and we've got the ability to monitor, which we just rounded out with the capacity unit application, or the admin monitoring, the security side of things, using role-based access control on our Entra ID to restrict who has access to what, our user management based on the Microsoft 365 licensing on what features you can use inside of a workspace, and lastly, the governance of that data to know, can we trust this data? And the big thing there is that we all know getting data from various data sources, is that data clean? Oh, we don't know, right? So you've got to have that data processing on top of it to be able to track, well, it's come from here, who's got access, who can have access, and what's the end result, so that we can actually feed that into that end decision making, and we know that that data is valid for us. To round out, you may have heard that Microsoft Fabric Conference is coming up. It's in Vegas, March 31 to April 2. There's still time to register. I will actually be there. I have 3 sessions that I'll be presenting at Vegas. It won't be this one, so don't worry that you've seen this one. I'm not doing this session in Vegas. If you are wanting to register, you can use this discount code and save yourself $200 off of your registration for the event. If you do come along, make sure you come up, say hello, introduce yourself. Happy to chat to you about all things Fabric. With that, we've got a couple of minutes left, so open it up to Q&A if there are any questions, Jason.
Not seeing any, but we will, as you said, we will allow people a minute or two to submit any questions that they have. But definitely appreciate your content and your knowledge, Warwick. That was a very rich hour, and as you said, I mean, we could go several days of this, I'm sure.
It as I called out with the just that one on Git integration, right? So
Yeah,
I got a fellow data platform MVP down this neck of the woods, and I delivered this session, and he is in the session directly beside me talking about Git integration, right? So, and that's just one bullet point on this. There's just so much from an administration point of view that you could dive into and target. Okay, so this is just that high level tip of the iceberg. These are the types of things that you need to be aware of and look into to get this into your environment and be able to administer this in your environment.
yeah, yeah. Certainly a robust platform. I mean, bringing all those pieces together, it's a lot to learn and a lot to manage. So great
Yes.
introduction. Yeah, again, we'll give Warwick does have I mean it's still early for him, but he does have a call here in just a couple minutes, but we'll allow another 60 seconds or so in case somebody wants to put a question in. But thank you all for joining us and for bearing with our little mishap on the link. Glad we could have kind of a redo a little bit later in the day. And by the way, of course, we will have a webinar again, probably April or May in that time frame. We usually do every other month, so watch for information on that. Coming soon. We'll get that out to you as soon as we can. And well, I think we could probably say goodbye. I'm not seeing any questions come in. So again, thank you, Warwick. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Okay, thanks.